right, so today was day 15 of this little documentary lab, and the goal was simple. Try to actually interrupt one of my own patterns. I'm using AI here not to get answers, but as a kind of mirror to see what my thinking actually looks like when it's under pressure. And you know that feeling? The morning started with just absolute clarity. The plan felt so simple, so achievable. I was totally convinced, okay, this is it. Today's the day this thing actually changes. So here's how it went down. 6:47 a.m. I make a very specific rule for myself. I will not ask AI for validation today. I even set up a little if-then plan. You know, if I feel uncertain, then I'll just wait 5 minutes before I do anything. Simple. Fast forward to 2:23 in the afternoon. My fingers are on the keyboard typing out the exact kind of prompt I promised I wouldn't. And the crazy part? I was completely aware of the morning's goal as I was doing it. And that right there is the entire point. The gap between what I intended and what I did, it wasn't because I forgot. I remembered the plan perfectly. It was my self-regulation, my ability to control my own actions, just collapsing right when I needed it most. So what's really going on here? This isn't just a personal failing. It points to something much bigger, like an automatic override that's hardwired into our brains. To get what's happening in that gap, we've got to look at the systems running the show. The brilliant Daniel Kahneman gives us a great way to think about this. He says we basically have two systems of thinking. System one is our autopilot. It's fast, it's intuitive, it's effortless, and it's always on. Then you've got system two, the pilot. This is the slow, deliberate, analytical part of you that makes plans. But here's the catch. The pilot gets tired, like really easily. And that leads us straight to what I'm calling the regulation gap. It's that space between the plan your pilot makes, that's system two, and the moment your autopilot, system one, just takes over and does the familiar, easy thing. And this isn't a moral failure. It's a resource problem. So let's do a little autopsy on that impulse. Let's figure out what's really going on when our best intentions just seem to evaporate into thin air. It all comes down to cognitive cost. There's this idea from architecture, of all places, called the Maclemi Curve, and it fits perfectly. It basically says that making a change early on in the planning stage is cheap and easy. But trying to make that same change late in the game, in the heat of the moment, the cost, the effort is just, it's astronomical. And there's a psychological term for this, and it's a real game changer: ego depletion. A researcher named Roy Baumeister came up with this idea that willpower isn't some fixed character trait. It's more like a muscle. And every time you use it to resist a temptation, to focus on a boring task, you're tiring it out. And if you want to see how real this is, get this number. In one of Baumeister's studies, he had people resist the temptation of freshly baked cookies for just 5 minutes. That's it. Afterwards, he gave them a difficult puzzle to solve. That group gave up 62% faster than the group who didn't have to resist anything. Resisting cookies used up the exact same mental fuel they needed for problem solving. It's all connected. This is exactly why the advice to just try harder is so useless. Like Kahneman says here, our brains are not designed to be in that effortful pilot mode all the time. It would be completely exhausting. Our brain's default setting is to conserve energy, to let the autopilot run the show. It's not a bug, it's a feature. So when you understand that, you start to see that our whole approach to changing our habits is kind of backward. We're essentially just slapping duct tape on a much deeper systemic problem. I love this metaphor from the late anthropologist David Graeber. Trying to fight an impulse in the moment is like finding a leak in your roof, and instead of getting up there and fixing the hole, you just hire a guy to stand under it 24/7, emptying the bucket as it fills up. I mean, you're managing the symptom, but you're doing absolutely nothing about the root cause, and it's constant, exhausting work. So really, it boils down to two approaches. You've got the duct tape fix. That's all about in-the-moment willpower, constantly emptying the bucket. Or you have the system fix. This is where you front-load the effort. You design a better system so that the right choice becomes the easy choice, and you don't even need the bucket anymore. And this is where it all started to click for me. Looking back at the day, at my failure, I realized I was looking at it all wrong. It wasn't a failure. It was data. You have to shift your perspective. When you try to change and you don't succeed, you haven't lost. You've just taken a really, really accurate measurement of your current capacity. And this is my measurement. 7 hours and 36 minutes. From the commitment in the morning to the collapse in the afternoon. That number isn't a story about my lack of discipline. It's a piece of data about my actual, real-world regulatory endurance on that particular day. The old me, the old question, would have been, why am I so undisciplined? You know that one, right? It's a question that just leads to shame. It attacks your character, and it gives you absolutely nothing to work with for next time. But there's this incredible idea that the questions we ask ourselves literally create the world we live in. A judgmental question creates a world of failure. But a better question? Well, that can create a world of possibility. So here's the new question, the more beautiful question. It accepts the data. It's not, what's wrong with me? It's okay, if my actual limit is 7.5 hours, what does a system for sustained change really need to look like? You see the difference? It shifts the focus from fixing me to fixing the design of the attempt itself. So what did I really learn today? I learned that just being aware of your patterns, well, that gives you vocabulary. But actually trying to interrupt one, that gives you cold, hard data. It showed me that this regulation gap isn't some moral failing, it's a measurable biological limit. And that leaves me, and maybe you, with this one final kind of tough question. It's the one we usually try to ignore. What if you do everything right? You understand the problem perfectly, you're deeply committed, but when the moment comes, you're just tired. What does real, sustainable change actually look like then?